Isn't it magical to see other crafters transform simple materials into gorgeous Christmas decor? Watching these festive creations come to life is so inspiring. It's like a spark of holiday magic that makes you want to dive into your own crafting stash and start creating. Let's get inspired by some of my favorite crafters and create their designs for our home. So grab a cup of coffee, tea, or hot chocolate, get cozy, and let's get crafting. These two canisters are perfect for recreating Mother Time's crockery jars that have the black and white labels on them. But first, I'm going to be using Rust-Oleum Clear Matte Finish to give them a base coat spray, so my chalk paint has the ability to stick really well. Now that the canisters are dry, you can tell that they have a matte finish on them and all of the gloss is gone. The paint that I'm using is a mixture of white and a little bit of that mushroom color that I really love. I wanted a really soft off-white color, almost like a crockery color, but I wanted it to be a little bit lighter. The canisters required 3 coats of paint to make sure that all of the dark green and burgundy was completely covered. Jen over at Mother Time didn't need to paint anything. She purchased her Crocs from a store. I created these 2 vintage labels for these Crocs, and they'll be available on my website as a free printable. The link is down in my description box. I'm going to cut them out fairly close to where the edges of the print are, and then I'll use Mod Podge to apply them to the canisters. The technique that Jen used to create her labels was to print them off on clear, transparent vinyl, and then she was able to just stick them onto her Crocs. That technique can only be used if you have a laser printer. It won't work for an inkjet because the ink will just smudge all over the front. What I love about gluing tissue paper onto projects like this is it forms a seamless matte texture that appears almost hand-painted, which is full of character and charm. Whether you're featuring floral things, intricate patterns, or typography, these canisters can be used as stylish storage or decorative accents, and I love how they turned out. Let me know if you're going to try this project too. For this project, I'm starting with a simple everyday pickle jar that's clean and stripped of its label, and it's ready to become a festive gingerbread-inspired decor piece. This project is also inspired by Jen over at Mother Time. I thought her gingerbread jar was just absolutely beautiful. I'm using white parchment paper because I didn't have any brown, and I also decided to scrunch it up a little bit to give it more of a wrinkly and vintage look. I'm now going to be just adding Mod Podge to the whole jar, and then I'll apply the parchment paper and make sure that it's glued down really well. I decided to work in sections so my Mod Podge wouldn't dry out on me, and I also used my hands to really press the parchment paper into the glue on the jar to make sure that it would adhere really well.
Our hearts beat to the city streets. We began to feel the fire. We rise like tall buildings as the chemicals, they take us higher. The night's young, it has just begun, as she puts her hand in mine. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull the stars from the sky just to...
When you get to the end, just trim off any of the excess parchment paper. I also took this opportunity to trim off the top because I won't need that. I did add a little bit extra Mod Podge right at the seam. I wanted to make sure it didn't come apart.
Two hearts running wild.
When you get to the bottom of the jar, you probably should leave a little bit of extra parchment paper hanging down on that side, just so you have enough to cover the bottom of the jar. I didn't, but I just fixed that really easily by cutting out a circle of parchment paper and using Mod Podge to glue it onto the bottom of the jar. That just covered everything and made it nice, smooth surface.
We're gonna be two hearts running wild. Yeah, the more
Once a jar is completely dry, then we can add our label. I decided to find a gingerbread cookie recipe, and I thought that would be fun to add to the front of the jar because then, while this project can be a beautiful decor for your kitchen, you could also transform it into a gift by filling it with all of the dry ingredients for this recipe. I found this recipe on Creative Fabrica, and you guys know I get a lot of my printables from there. So I won't be able to share this with you as a free printable, but I'll have the link to this exact recipe down in my description box. And if you want to go take a look at it and purchase it for yourself, then you can do so. The technique that Jen used to distress her jar was to take some dry coffee grounds, and while the Mod Podge was still a little bit wet on her jar, she just rubbed it all over. I decided I didn't want to get that messy, so I'm just taking a little bit of gel stain here, and I believe this is a maple color, so it's got a little bit of a red tinge to it. And I'm literally just rubbing it right onto the jar and putting as much or as little as I want on it. And I thought this was a really fun way of creating your own kind of grungy look without getting too dirty.
morning is the afternoon. We lay awake in bed. It laughs so loud as the hours pass. We're gonna
Jen used a pretty brown and beige plaid for the top of her jar. I didn't have anything like that, so I'm just going to use a piece of drop cloth and some red and white baker's twine.
do it all again. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull the stars from the sky, just two hearts run.
To add some distressing to the drop cloth, I just took the sponge that I used for the distressing of the parchment paper and just dabbed it onto the drop cloth, and that just gave it a little bit more of a grungy look too. This holiday decor accent piece turned out really cute, and I think I might even do some of these and actually use them as gifts for people this year, adding the dry ingredients like flour, sugar, baking soda, and spices for a nice layered cookie in a jar gift. Now, let's transform old ball style ornaments into unique Christmas treasures using just parchment paper and Mod Podge. This technique was inspired by my best friend Sonia, who is at DIYs with Sonia, and you guys know I collab with her a lot, and we are YouTube buddies, but we're also best friends in real life. Every year around this time, Sonia starts to really inspire me for the holidays. She loves Christmas. She puts up 5 or 6 different trees and shows you how she decorates them. That's over on her home channel, but she's also right now doing a bunch of Christmas DIYs too. So make sure you head on over there. I'll have all of these ladies' channels linked in my description box. Sonia used tissue paper. I didn't have any. I'm going to use parchment paper. As you can see, I crinkled it up one more time, and now I'm literally just going to cover the ball with it. Once it was all glued on and I knew it wouldn't come off anymore, I trimmed off the excess at the top. I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more embellishment to the top of my ornament. So I'm using some of these little pieces of pine cone, a little bit of boxwood, and some red pip berries. Using neutral ornaments like this one in the white gives you the ability to add all sorts of different embellishments to it. You've got a blank canvas and you can add whatever your heart desires, whether it's rustic with twine and pine cones, glitter with a little bit of sequins and some sparkle, or even just leaving it plain. This old ball style ornament is going to get a luxurious high-end makeover. I'm going to be using some neutral paint tones. I'm going to give it a stone look, and it is inspired by this ornament from Sonia. I'm going to start by coating the ornament with this clay color from Martha Stewart. It's sort of a beige gray color. It's really hard to describe, but I love these natural earthy hues. To achieve a bit of a stone texture, once it's dry, I'm going to be adding some of this off-white that I used for the canisters, and that is going to be sponged on. This is a technique that Sonia uses a lot with her ornaments, and that's how she achieved all the depth of color with this ornament. The best technique that I have found to create a beautiful sponged look is using a regular old grungy kitchen sponge. That's what I'm using here. I wash it after each time I use it, and then it's ready to go for my next project. I like this because you don't get any lines with it. Sometimes when you use those foam brushes or the pouncer brushes, you'll get circles or lines or different shapes. And then you've got to just keep on going and going to try and camouflage those. So this is why I like to use the kitchen sponge. Once I'm done with this color, I'm going to just check and see. There's a couple of places where I went on a little too heavy. So then I'll just take some of that original clay paint and go back over those. For a final touch, I'm going to hot glue a little piece of this ribbon. It's sort of a twine or a burlap color, but it's really nice and soft and it has a really beautiful edge to it. Then I'll add just a simple shoestring bow and I'll glue that on top of it too. I love how both of these ornaments turned out. I think they are sophisticated, they're timeless, and they're charming, and they will fit into any style of holiday decor, modern or traditional. My last two projects are inspired by Julie from Julie's Designs and Signs. The first one is just making some little vintage postcard shaped ornaments using paper and cardboard. I went back over to Creative Fabrica, typed in vintage postcards, and I got a whole bunch of different designs. And I chose this one. I love that there's a little bit of music paper. There's some Christmas trees, different designs, but they're all very rustic and very vintage looking. These were not postcard shaped, they were squares, so I just went and worked with that. I'm cutting them out and I'm going to use my glue stick to glue them onto this piece of cardboard. Make sure if you want to have a nice clean backing on these that you put the print on the front where all of the writing is, unless you have a piece of cardboard that is clean on both sides, but it really won't matter. You won't be able to see any of the print on the top. Next, all you have to do is cut out the squares. These are the postcards that Julie used. She found some French ones. I think if you go over to thegraphicsfairy.com, you might find more of a vintage French country kind of Christmas. I'm not sure if they have any on there, but they've got thousands of free printables as well. So once I'm done cutting these out, I'm going to use my Dollar Tree scoring tool and create 2 holes on each top corner of these postcards.
Two hearts running wild.
Taking a small piece of wire, I'm going to feed it through the hole from the back to the front, and then use my needle nose pliers to make a little curly loop. You can do whatever you want with this. You can use twine, you can use ribbon, whatever your heart desires. I like my ornaments to be hanging on the tree and not see what's actually hanging them there. So I rather use wire or green wire or chenille stems that are green. I want everything to camouflage into the tree so the ornaments pop. As you can see, I'm going to bend it into a half moon shape, and then I'll pull it in from the other side and repeat the process. I'm going to take some of my honey brown paint. This is a color that I use a lot for fall, but I also use it a lot for a rusty look on wire. So I'm just going to take a small brush and just dab it on, and that's just going to take that wire from shiny silver to just a little bit of a matted orange that makes it look like it has a little bit of rust on it. I'll have the link to this download graphics from Creative Fabrica in my description box as well.
It was the best we ever had. And we'll stay on forever. We'll never have regrets. We wanna chase the
This project is something that I have been wanting to do for a really long time. These angels that Julie created are made out of fence boards and other pieces of wood. She used her jigsaw to cut them out. And while I can do that as well, I thought I was going to take advantage of the fact that I have a laser cutting machine. I created the design as close to Julie's as I could and had my machine cut it out for me. Granted, the wood is not as thick as the ones that Julie made, but I think they turned out just as darling. To get more of a distressed wood look, I used a mister with some water, sprayed it onto the angels, and now I'm using a wash of the clay paint. And I really like this color. I think it's really great. It's a grayish beige, a neutral, perfect for what I'm wanting to create this holiday season. I did the same thing for the wings with the water, but I used a white color instead, just so there would be a little bit more of a contrast. And that's what Julie did. So I thought I would just take her inspiration and run with it. The inspiration angels were thick enough of a wood so they would stand on their own. Mine were not, so I just added these medium-sized tumbling tower blocks to the back, and they stood up perfectly. Then I'm just going to hot glue the wings to the back of each of the bodies of the angels, add a little bit of brown leather around their necks for a little trim piece, and these are done. If you're wondering why I'm not doing any halos, I don't really like the look of halos on angels. I don't like that they stick up and hang over their heads like that. I would much rather have a little bit of a crown on them, but for this project, I decided to leave them bare.
wanna dance to the light. Pull the stars from the sky, just two hearts running wild. Never sleep, never stop. As we
If you wanted to add a little holiday sparkle or some holiday color, you could definitely add a little pipberry or maybe some sprigs of greenery. I like them just the way they were. I'm so excited to share with you that I have reopened my Etsy shop for the Christmas holiday season, and I'll have some different types of wood cutout craft kits available for you. For now, I've got these 3 hearts and 3 stars, and they're kind of wonky, but I think they're so fun. And then I've got a set of 3 angels. The angels come in a 3-piece set with the wings unattached, so that is something that you'll have to put together yourself. I could see these in a grouping. I could see them on a piece of wood, so they would be standing all together. There's so many things that you can do with these little wood pieces. The month of November is really busy for me, but I'll do my best to get all of these craft kits out to you if you'd like to place an order. If you have any other ideas for some more wood kits, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you enjoyed these Christmas dupes from my favorite crafters and got inspired to create some of your own homemade ornaments or upcycled ornaments for the holiday season this year. If you're looking for even more Christmas inspiration, here's a playlist for you. Bye for now.